welcome to a very special episode 41 of the Destiny Truthcast. Over the last year and a half, we've tried to create a platform for the BNet community to speak to Bungie on a more personal level as they discuss their feelings for this game we all share this passion for, and to hopefully help bridge the communication divide between the community and developer. Over the last 40 episodes, we've had on 69 different members of the community, and we have gotten to know the voices and personalities behind the names we see each day on the forums. We've spoken to Guardians from all over the world, and they've shared their ideas on the game with us, with the community, and with Cosmo, Deej, and others at Bungie as well. BNet has a reputation for being the Wild West of Destiny discussion, and there's a perception that Bungie doesn't listen to us here. But it's not the case. They do listen, they do respond, and we as a community have done a great deal to help shape this game over the last 2.5 years. Today we are happy to have another UK guest joining us, stealthmanuk, to talk Destiny, and we're also joined today by someone who writes about Destiny on a national level and has been linked extensively in posts since launch, and we're happy to welcome Paul Tassi of Forbes to the podcast. So start with you, Stealthman. How are you today? And if you could, just tell the community just a little bit about yourself.
Yes, I'm really good. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I bought Destiny on launch, believe it or not, but I didn't actually pick it up until about June 2015. Played a little bit of solo play, met some friends in Court of Oryx, did a lot of raiding, loved the hard mode King's Fall, and still playing it obviously now strong. Just come off skirmish to come on here, and I'll probably go back on Destiny after this is finished. I've mained a Warlock since day one. It's got the most time on it, but I probably prefer playing me Titan lately. I think my favourite subclass is Tiger Striking and Voidwalker Warlock.
And are you the Jug Shield or are you the Shoulder Charge?
I've never been Jug Shield, no. I'm not a shotgunner, so I've been Shoulder Charge.
And just real quickly, what is your primary of choice that you like to roll with in Destiny?
It's obviously changed a bit with the times. I used to use the meter a bit. And then I dropped the Soul Stealers, so I was using the Soul Stealers. And the last 2 weeks I've started using Doctrine again. Don't ask me why, just seems to be doing quite well lately.
Yeah, RWG and I were playing some Supremacy last week, and someone was rolling the Doctrine and just chewing us up with it. So I brought mine out, and mine's a little too unstable for me, but yeah, it seems to be doing some work. And we're happy today to have Paul Tassi of Forbes joining us. Paul, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
I know that a lot of people on the forums are obviously familiar with you, but if you could, for those that haven't had a chance to read you, just tell the community just a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, sure. I write about video games for Forbes. I've been doing that about 6 years now, and I've been playing Destiny since the beta, all the betas, or was there an alpha? There was an alpha first, yeah, since the alpha. And I've written probably, I don't know, a couple hundred Destiny articles at this point. It's a game where there's just always so much to talk about, and there was so much community interest about pretty much every topic for the longest time, and there still is. So that's why I've been covering kind of Destiny so exclusively.
Yeah, and you've really had a pulse of the community in your work since launch, and have enjoyed reading you talk about the things that matter to the community in your work. And you also do some science fiction writing yourself.
Yeah, I wrote a science fiction trilogy called the Earthborn Trilogy, and the last book of that was published at the beginning of last year. And I'm working on some other stuff, but that's not finalized yet. But yeah, I write books in my spare time because I'm just kind of obsessed with writing in general, so it's something else to do.
Well, we really are appreciative of you joining us here today. And RedWingGirl, if you would like to get us started on the discussion.
Sure. So, Paul, this question is sort of directed towards you. I was reading your last article about the Zelda new game, and one of the things that popped out to me was in regards to open worlds. It says you had responded, the ones that encourage and complacent sort of tedium. And I'm wondering how you think that would be applied towards D2.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't necessarily meant as like shade thrown towards Destiny or any of those other games, because like I love that type of game, and like open world games like Destiny or The Division or whatever, or Diablo 3 are my favorite genre of games. The difference with Zelda is that the focus is a lot more in kind of exploration and the experience and like the kind of the thrill of discovery rather than kind of just grinding out for loot. And while grinding out for loot can be fun, I think Zelda can teach some other open world games a few lessons about kind of the joy being in the world itself and all the cool things you can find in the world. I do think Destiny has done that better than a lot of games because at least at first when you kind of access the new areas for the first time, they were really fun to explore, and there's kind of like little secrets and things you can find just through that. The problem, I guess, is a little bit with once you start putting 2, 3, 4, 800 hours into Destiny, you've kind of seen every inch of the map. So I don't know. I think there might be a couple lessons to learn for D2, but I wouldn't recommend kind of a complete reshuffling of the entire concept, because I think it does work for Destiny and it has worked very well. So I wouldn't like tell them to scrap it and start all over again. You know what I mean?
Right, but when you elaborate a little bit on that and you want people to sort of grind for the materials and go to these different planets and have an adventure and try to use those experiences to gain some of the RNG items that drop, for example, the armor and engrams, and we don't even know if engrams will be implemented, but just for the armor and weapons and things of that nature, I mean, doesn't it just become the same thing that it's always sort of been? I mean, don't you sort of hope that D2 sort of has a little bit more of an expansive experience, a little bit more robust than it has in the past, where it sort of just falls short? There's a lot of starts and stops until content is reintroduced.
I do, yeah. And I think they could kind of reduce some of the, grinding for currency and materials and those, perfect rolls. And the problem is it goes kind of two ways, because like if they reduce that too much, then everyone gets what they want too quickly and stop playing. But with that said, I think it probably is, kind of too intensive now for like just searching eternally for god rolls, and it being kind of a little stilted and like kind of max efficiency farming whatever activity you're going to do. I think I really like at least a lot of the exotic quests, because that feels more like this like direct pursuit of something where it integrates the world and story and good loot, but it does it in an interesting way where you're not just kind of farming the same thing over and over again, like hoping for a drop. I would like to see more stuff like that going forward, and I think that would probably be a good place to start.
Well, I know that for one of the exotic quests, you had noted that you didn't really like the Black Spindle quest. I'm wondering if you've done the sword exotic quests and if you thought that was a better alternative to the almost impossible trying to get that Black Spindle, especially if you were a single player.
You remember my Black Spindle rage, I guess. Yeah. In retrospect, maybe I was a little harsh on that. I mean, Destiny has never been the friendliest for solo players. I did do the exotic sword quests. I think I didn't do all of them, but I at least got, I think, 2. And I was fortunate to do that with a group that it didn't make it that big of a deal. I don't know. I think there's kind of hit or miss exotic quests. I think my favorites have been maybe this is cheating, but some of the easier ones. Like I really liked the new Kostov and the new Galahorn quests. That they weren't like ultra crazy challenging, but they were a little bit challenging, but they were soloable. And they also had some kind of interesting story components and how they related to the gun. I would prefer that over like, complete this just insane hard challenge arena. Like the Black Spindle quest was cool because of how it was set up and how it was discovered, and it was this like secret no one knew about until one random dude found it, and like that aspect of it was cool. I did not like playing it at the time because I was probably under-geared for it and didn't have like a reliable group I could run with. But generally, yeah, I do like kind of more story-focused, exotic quests and things like that.
Stealth, are you a single PvE player, or do you belong to a clan, or do you have a group of friends that you do some of these events together, or have you also tried to do a lot of this solo?
I was single when I first started, and obviously I was in Court of Oryx one day and I got an invite from someone. And that was a long time ago now. And now I'm only in part of a clan. There's only 3 of us, but we have a pretty consistent group of friends that do it. So I know Paul's been talking about the Black Spindle. I actually loved that quest. We had very similar, I read Paul's article on it, we had very similar thoughts when we first started to do it. We were getting wrecked. You know, we were just going into the third room and just guns blazing, grenades, supers, until we actually sat back and thought about it. Once we actually thought about it, we didn't use a gun, we used 3 swords, a titan with weapons, a titan with blessing, and a tether, hunter tether, either side of them. On the top, as soon as we went in, wrecked them with swords in 10-15 seconds, cleared the room up, you're finishing with 2.5-3 minutes left on.
And here's something that's interesting about the whole Black Spindle and the experience of it is so much of this game is tied to if you experience as a solo player or if you can experience with a fire team. And to that end, you know, something that Destiny 1, when I bought the game, I've spoke of this before, you know, I went in that first day and I went around the Cosmodrome with my headset on, went to the tower with my headset on, and I'm trying to say hello to all these people and no one's answering, and I can't figure out why. I'm thinking no one has headsets when they play video games anymore. And then you figure out that the communication isn't really built into this game. You know, it's not a default setting. And, you know, it's understandable why there's not the proximity chat. They're afraid of probably the vitriol, harassment, or things that could open up. But something looking to Destiny 2 and the way that we've done things with these quests and reliant on friends and other people within this universe would be pretty cool if they could figure out a way to implement some sort of compromise on that, whether it be when we go into a zone and there's a way to, you know, toggle on and off zone chat when you go in there. To be able to talk to randoms within a zone, or toggle on and off tower chat when you're in the tower. But the Black Spindle, I went in with a group that day. I played solo at the time, and we didn't come close. It was not until I started playing with RedWingGirl that I got that. So that was much later in the game. But I appreciated you getting me my Black Spindle, RedWingGirl.
No problem. And to just to focus a little bit more on matchmaking, I mean, it's something that the community has been asking for quite some time. And there are quite a bit of outsourced sites that provide LFG services for the community. And Bungie has expanded a little bit on their own website to provide a means for people to try to build fire teams. But I'm wondering what everyone thinks if they do develop some sort of in-game optional matchmaking program for D2. I'm not convinced that they would do it, but I'm wondering what the significance would be for a lot of the players that have left because of those reasons, if it would bring them back, and what it would mean for those companies like the 100 that have built these programs that people use today, and some contribute. I'm a contributor to the 100, so I'm wondering how those companies would be affected. What is everyone's opinion on that?
Well, that's actually, Paul, we first spoke in Destiny about optional matchmaking back in June of 2015. We've seen what has come with the game and the content. Do you think that come D2 we will see some sort of optional matchmaking implemented in?
Oh man, that's a tough call. I guess will we see it and should we see it might be two different questions. I mean, like I have to believe that Bungie hasn't implemented it by now after kind of 3 years. I don't know if they would necessarily for D2 just because it's a new game. I doubt the reason they're not doing it now is like a technical reason where they need a new game to do it. I mean, maybe, but they've never really shown an interest in that. Even for some of the lesser tier activities that only 3 people can do, that they still, for some of those, still don't have matchmaking. Should they? I mean, I've been making this argument for 2.5 years now that it can't hurt. Like I get the fundamental idea that yes, something like a raid, you can have a really bad experience playing with randoms and like randomized matchmaking and like people leaving and whatever. But the thing is, I mean, the 100 is a really good site. That they do everything really well. Generally, if you are using LFG sites, though, it is some degree of kind of just third-party randomized matchmaking. And like, yeah, it's more detailed, and you can set criteria and talk to people beforehand, whatever, and you're not just like thrown into a team with people. But but at its core, I've had good and bad experiences using those systems. Like it doesn't seem like it's all that far removed from just what in-game matchmaking would be, and I don't really see why it would hurt to at least kind of give it a shot. And if it's a total disaster, like, scrap it. But like the people who don't want to use it and have their teams can still use the teams. People that like the 100 Destiny LFG or whatever and want more specific criteria can still use those. But I do think a lot of people are getting left behind because they don't want to take the time and effort to organize their own teams like outside of the game, and I think they do need to come up with a solution for that, whatever that may be.
Stealth, have you ever used one of the LFG or have gone to Bungie's own website, or are you just dependent on some of the people that you've met within Destiny?
No, we've used LFG. We've probably used LFG the most when we were doing King's Fall Heroic. We had a pretty reliable group of friends. But yeah, we've need to go to LFG a few times for 2 or 3 at a time, or when we've wanted to run it on a third character and there's not many friends online. And like you know, has already been said, we've had good experiences and bad experiences. I think some people are scared of LFG. You know, that all the requirements that sometimes there's requirements down, or they feel like they should have completed it a certain amount of times, and I think it puts a lot of people off joining a fire team. But yeah, we've used it and we've had some good experiences with it. In fact, I would say probably 2 or 3 of the friends I still play with now I've met on LFG.
So I'm sure all of you have read the announcement of that Bungie made this week in regards to the reset. Everything will be left behind, with the exception of your face paint. So what is everyone's feelings about that? I know I've written a short post on BNet about it. I have pretty strong feelings about it. I'm a little bit on the fence on some things, but I'm a little disappointed in others. What's everyone else's thoughts on it?
I think when I first read it, like a lot of people, I was probably a little bit upset. But I think I know Bungie well enough now, and once you've ground out something, they like you to leave it behind, like the Black Spindle. Who uses the Black Spindle anymore? The Touch of Malice, once it's seen its day, they change things within the game, so not many people use it anymore. So now I'm kind of thinking, well, yeah, new game, Destiny 2, let's start afresh. So my personal view now, and I know a couple of friends I've spoke to after a couple of days' reflection is, yeah, new game, new start, so it doesn't hugely bother me now.
It's funny, you actually posted on this a couple months ago, Paul, saying that maybe they should start over for D2, and we had a discussion over that on the forums at the time. I know that you are in favor of it. RedWingGirl, I know that you are the ultimate collector, spend hours at your vault just clearing space and trying to figure out what to keep, and the time that you've put into this and what you expected going into it. My take has been, since the Taken King came out and Eververse was introduced, that Destiny 1 again was not the game that Bungie wanted, and they realized that, and so Destiny 2, they are making the game hopefully that they want. The Destiny 1 is Frankenstein's monster. It was a game that Joe Staten created, and for whatever reason they decided to cancel, and then they took those pieces and they've been stitching them back together and trying to create a narrative on the fly for the last 2.5 years. We know that in 2014 in IGN they were still talking about continuation of our characters, same in Games Radar in 2015. At some point obviously they decided that the face paint only was what they needed for this game. But it's really difficult, and it's really divided a lot of people. People feel very passionately on both sides of this, and I know a lot of people want to have that fresh start, but then there's the players that went into this for this grand 10-year plan of our characters growing and progressing. And to me, I just think that the timing of the announcement was interesting, coming when it did, with nothing to kind of temper it for those players that would be upset, and nothing to kind of explain why this was the best thing going forward. But like I said, I just think that Destiny 2 is going to be the game they want to make, but I think that there should have been some concessions. Something that we've been asking for since launch has been the Transmogrification, and it seems to me that at least with sets like the raid sets, that end game real grind, that would have been something that would have been nice if they could have carried forward, at least cosmetically. But I'll throw it to you, Paul, because I know that you have a different take on this.
Yeah, I'm firmly in support of this. I've said that many times. I think in my article I wrote a couple months ago, I even suggested the tricky way they could do it is to just move the cosmetic appearance of the character forward. So technically they would be telling the truth about your character going forward. Just, you leave literally everything important behind. And I get why that might upset kind of people, how it's a technicality, and I understand why the most dedicated players who have the most stuff and have put the most time in feel a little kind of slighted or shorted by this. But I mean, the calculation is pretty easy they made here. They think that they will attract more kind of new or heavily lapsed players by offering essentially a completely fresh start with Destiny 2 than they will losing veteran players who are upset about carrying stuff over. Because understanding that some people are upset about it and kind of knowing where they're coming from, I would guess that 99% of those will, if they're that into Destiny 1, they will show up to Destiny 2 no matter what. And Bungie is probably banking on that, and I think that even if people are upset now, once Destiny 2 comes around, they will be on board. With that said, I think they really should go out of their way to offer a lot of cool stuff for veteran players who have achieved this, that, or whatever. I think something would be awesome, like a trophy room, or even if it's just like a cosmetic collection of like your coolest guns or the armor sets you had, or I don't know, something like that. Like, it should be more than just like an emblem and a shader. But also, with all this said, I think Bungie will be bringing back many famous items, weapons, armor sets, stuff like that, because they love nostalgia and they know people are going to want to find that stuff. So even if you are losing a lot of, quote-unquote key stuff from Destiny 1, I almost guarantee you're going to see a lot of it come back in one form or another.
But that kind of undermines the point of a reset, right? If the argument is that everything is old, stale, and used up, and we want a fresh start, and the thought of leveling up the Gallahorn for I don't know, I think this is the 5th time, just seems kind of cheap, From my perspective as a collector and as someone who's done all of these things, there's a couple different levels of disappointment. One is that the whole reason that I was attracted to Destiny was their long-term project, which isn't really what this is going to be now. This is just going to sort of just be a new game, or as they refer to it, as a sequel, and not a progression, which is sort of a disappointment. I thought that was going to be the most unique thing about Destiny, that it wouldn't just be, okay, you've done everything in Destiny 1, now we're not going to look back towards that. You're never going to go back to those planets. You're never going to, go back and do some of those Vault of Glass raids or Crota raid or whatever. You're never going to look back on that to play the content. We're now just going to forget all of that and move on. But further to that, so there's that. I can understand that. I can sort of let that go. That's a little disappointment. The second part of that is it's some of the things that people have spent with Eververse. And I'm one of those people that have spent quite a bit of money building up armor sets for collection that I wanted to sort of look at from year 1 that I would have at like year 10, right? So there's money wasted. And third, the grind to get some of these guns with rolls and armors with rolls that I understand might be completely useless in the new type of Destiny 2, it just undermines grinding. So all of the fundamental things that drove me to put so many hours into Destiny sort of got undermined by that, I think. And maybe some people don't look at it that way, but I kind of did. And so I'm not oblivious to the reasoning behind resetting and starting over and getting on a different engine and, just redoing everything because so many things have been changed and they want to start over. I'm behind all of that. And in terms of the technology involved, I understand all of that. I completely am for them making the game better. I'm just a little bit disappointed in that they didn't follow the original idea and follow it through, and they aren't going to respect the people that have spent money, like on emotes and things like that. Those will be sort of wasted away. And I think, microtransactions are going to take a hit in D2 because of what's happened in D1.
Yeah, I would say that you're totally right, especially on the microtransaction front. And I will say that I think it's a problem with the core system, period, is I have never been a fan of the microtransactions that have you kind of gambling to get a full armor set, which can cost, I'm sure like potentially hundreds of dollars to get like a full unique armor set on 3 characters, like per event. And I think you're right. I think that, maybe if you weren't going to use that stuff carrying forward, but the knowledge that almost certainly like it's going to be defunct in like 2 or 3 years, as opposed to keeping it for as long as they're making Destiny games, I do think they'll take a hit there. And I don't know. It is a tough situation because like I almost think like they had to do this, but I agree that it sucks to have not like had this information be made more clear kind of upfront and had people invest so much time and money. And that I definitely understand and can sympathize with.
Which that's another thing I wanted to discuss is just the topic again of Bungie and communication. And I think they've been a lot better since Destiny launched, and we've had, this blow up recently with the patch launching and the fallout from that. And we actually had Josh Hamrick come to the forums and into a post and was discussing things with players there. And, he stated that they need to be better with communication, and he's gone into the weekly updates and put that out there and tried to be more upfront there. But, to this announcement, and it's something that they've done going back to the Dark Below, where they're announcing, this new content that's coming, but then they announce that, but you're going to be losing your vanilla weapons and they're not going to go forward. And it kind of undermined it, to a large degree. And they did this with the Taken King, where they had the addition by subtraction to a large degree when they made that announcement. And so they announced, actually, we're getting a new, event, the Age of Triumph, the other day, and no one's talking about it. Because in the same announcement, they dropped this news about things not progressing, and I just don't understand the way they go about communicating with us and communicating about the game. It just didn't seem to make any sense because, again, there was nothing to temper it at all for the players that were going to be upset. There was no reasoning given besides we think this is for the best. And it completely took away from the fact that there's going to be 3 live streams about new content coming in the next 3 weeks. And I don't know, it's just thoughts on that. Have anyone been really thinking about the Age of Triumph and what's coming? And also, to you, Paul, how would you rate Bungie's ability to communicate their vision with the community compared to other AAA game creators?
Yeah, well, to answer that first about communication, the problem with Bungie's been is for at least a lot of Destiny, I don't think they've known kind of what they're doing, and like that sounds bad, but I think they've changed so much about like what content was going in what thing, and like what was getting ripped out of the game and what was being shelved for later. I don't think that they could actually talk about a lot of stuff. I don't know when they actually made the decision to cut, all the weapons and armor from Destiny 2. Like it would have been nice to know that a long time ago. I don't know if they purposely withheld that so people would, maintain interest more, but it does kind of suck now because, like you said, now they're announcing Age of Triumph, which everyone assumes is some sort of raid thing, going back to the Vault of Glass. Maybe you go back to one or two of the others. I don't even know. But the problem is like, okay, well, I'm going to get this, 400 light level Vault of Glass armor set, or like, Mythic class at 400 light or something. But why? What's the point? Like, it's all going to be going away, hopefully by this fall. So it's hard to get, I guess, a little more excited about that. Like, I mean, you're right. It was very kind of odd to put those back to back. Like, oh, there's new content for this game that is about to be immediately executed and dead. So I did find that a little strange.
What about you, Stealth Man? Have you given any thought to the Age of Triumph since they've announced it, or did this other announcement kind of dull that for you as well?
Yeah, similar to Paul. I mean, the pictures lead you to believe it's something to do with a raid, but with it being the live team, I don't know that. I don't really think they do raids, do they? But yeah, it's kind of, Destiny 2's coming, and I know it's meant to be, around September time. But whatever comes out now, like what Paul's just said, I'm thinking, well, if it's a raid, yeah, we'd do the raid, but I wouldn't be bothered about grinding it out once I've done it once, because whatever you get, you're not going to carry forward. So I guess there is that, but I think all 4 emblems were all 4 raids, weren't they? So I'm not really sure I guess we'll find out on Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm thinking that they're probably going to do another book or something like the SRL book, or, the Iron Lord book, where they just sort of have us do so many sequences of existing events. And I in the past, I thought for sure that they were going to bring back Vault of Glass and Crota, and I'm not even sure that I think that that's going to happen now. I mean, and if it does, like, Paul said, I mean, you can go through it for nostalgic reasons, and I suppose that would be fun to do, but, in the back of your mind, you're going to know that everything that's dropping is just going to go to waste, which is sort of unfortunate, because it just kind of goes to my argument where I just kind of wanted a progression, just keep the character going and move on to the new, add new supers, add new weapons, let us rotate those things out and find those things and develop our character over time, not just take it from us and then make us start over. I mean, at the end of the day, some of the things that a lot of people on the forums voice are just how upset they are about some of these weapon balances and, some of the abilities that have been nerfed or buffed, or, everyone has a complaint. But, the same people that are doing all of that now are the ones that are creating D2. So it's to think that it's going to be a reset and that things are going to be resolved and you're going to be happy because it'll all be new content. I'm almost 100% certain that we're going to find within a week or two there'll be a new meta. Bungie will run the numbers, there'll be nerfs, there'll be changes, there'll be all kinds of things, and it'll be the same kind of complaints that arise there. And so, I guess we just have to wait and see, but I don't know.
Something that we've discussed, the Vault of Glass, whether it's coming back or not, I think that the take on the books is something that is a very good possibility that we'll see. I don't know if they would do this, but if there is an avenue for compromise, I could see this being maybe something they would do, because again, as you stated, Paul, they could bring back the Vault of Glass, but what's kind of the point of running it if everything's going to be obsolete 6 months from now? I think if maybe they had a book and the completion of it would let you take forward something from Destiny 1 to Destiny 2 for completing this book, if there was some reward at the end that was transferable, I wonder if that might be something that would kind of maybe bridge the gap a little and give people incentive to be a little more invested in things. But to what you said, RedWingGirl, them building on the universe with Destiny 2 instead of, just leaving it behind. We all expect there to be new worlds to explore, new guns to shoot, new armor to wear, new things to grind for. But I think we just didn't expect to completely leave behind the worlds that we've been at and the things that we've seen and done. I know coming from World of Warcraft, I expected that kind of progression where you'd move on, but you could always go back and those places would be there. But the addition by subtraction's kind of been a Destiny thing since the beginning of this game, where it seems like, you get something, but then you lose something at the same time. So I just, I don't know what we'll see going forward there, but I'm with you that I would have liked to still had those old worlds to be able to go back to. But, who knows why that is the case that we were not going to be able to.
Stealth, have you ever done the Vault of Glass raids or the Crota raids?
Yeah, I've done Crota. Vault of Glass I've always wanted to do, and I've done it right up until the final boss. I was with a group of people that hadn't really done it before. It got quite challenging to find people to do it with that had been around since year one, on my group of friends anyway. So yeah, we've done Crota just the once, and tried to do Vault of Glass, got to the final boss, and couldn't do it in the final boss. Obviously I didn't know what I was doing, so I was a newbie on it. So yeah, it was good. They were good raids. I enjoyed Crota. Fond memories of that. As I said earlier on, King's Fall was the one that we used to run it 3 times a week minimum. I think about 50 odd completions on heroic on that. Really enjoyed King's Fall. Not a huge fan of the WOTM. Not a huge fan of that at all. I think I've only done it 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, I'm sort of in the same boat you are. I'm not really a fan of the latest one, but so if they did bring back the Vault of Glass or Crota, I mean, there would be many more people than obviously would probably be interested in redoing that if they up the light level to 400. I'm sure there would be a lot of people that would do it. So maybe there would be a better opportunity. Paul, have you ever done Vault of Glass?
Yeah, way back in the day. My first run was like not right when it was happening, but I found a Destiny LFG group, and I swear it was like the first time I ran through it was just such a nightmare. We had someone like just stay by the maze, so none of the platforms were spawning, and all the Titans were dying, trying to bridge the gap for like 25 minutes. The final boss, I think we had like 3 or 4 people drop, and then we had to cycle new people by putting new postings in Destiny LFG like as we're playing, and I'm like, oh my god, I wish I just had 5 people I could play with. I'm not like a huge raider. I do like each raid, once or twice and then kind of peace, because I'm not the biggest fan of kind of setting up the groups and finding groups and doing that. And I could if I really wanted to, but to me that's never been super appealing. So I kind of just do them to do them, and then move on to more content. I can just solo.
What character class do you play the most? What do you like to play Destiny as?
My main is Warlock, and then probably Titan's my next most played, and then I have a Hunter that is slightly neglected. Warlock is I usually do Voidwalker, Warlock, probably Defender Titan, and Night Stalker Hunter, but my Warlock is definitely my most hours, probably by at least double my Titan.
Are you a shotgunner, a sniper, or what's your play style?
I'm very bad with most secondary weapons, so PvP has not been good to me for the most part. Probably shotgun and I like trying to fusion rifle. It's like really futile, but I am not good at sniping in PvP. I'll like snipe all day in PvE, but I'm not good enough for that. So it's usually, well, lately it's been sidearm with the crazy meta. But yeah, so sniper's not quite my thing in PvP.
Yeah, I'm not a sniper either, and in fact, it's probably at least for RedWingGirl and myself, our least favorite thing to die to in PvP would be the snipers. But let me ask you this, since you're not really a PvP player, what has been your take on Destiny and how they've handled PvP and PvE, and how PvP has such a bearing on how the PvE game is played?
Oh man, yeah. For the most part, I don't really like it. Like I think they've done the best with what they have and like what they're given, but it kind of sucks for me to come from so many years of like Bungie just rocking out PvP with Halo, like that being my favorite like multiplayer shooter of all time, to Destiny, and like Destiny is pretty good and they often do the balance pretty well. I know there has been times where they nerf something for PvP and it just takes the life out of whatever that is for PvE. They are doing it a hell of a lot better than a game like The Division, which just has no idea how to balance PvP play and PvE. With that said, I mean, this is always kind of grated on me a little bit about Destiny PvP. Is just it never quite feels like it's going to be balanced because there's just so many moving pieces. Like there aren't like 14 guns you have to balance. Like it's 9 classes of guns that all have 60 models each, and like 14 different perks on each gun. It's a lot to balance. So I think they're doing kind of the best they can in a lot of ways. It's kind of set up for failure from the start to begin with. But again, it hasn't been a failure because many people do like Destiny PvP quite a bit. But for me personally, I guess that's kind of why I've shied away from PvP for the most part.
Well, something we've discussed a lot, particularly recently with all the weapon talk, is the fact that Destiny's not really set up for that 1-1 balance. And it seems like Bungie has tried to shoehorn the game since launch into a 1-1 balance that again, it just, once you say we're going to take our own weapons and armor into the Crucible, we're not using white weapons, that goes out the window. And so it seems like they created that unique experience where you might be outgunned, someone might have better equipment than you, and you'd have to find a way to overcome and compensate and use your full suite of abilities, grenades, supers, to find ways to counter situations. And that was kind of the experience going in, and it seems like they've kind of, again, tried to fit that into something else. Stealthman, what's been your take on that? Do you like more of a balance where everything kind of fits, or do you think that they should kind of be more stand behind the rock paper scissors? There's advantages, disadvantages, counters, and whatnot to play.
I'm a firm believer in I don't like nerfs. I don't like them at all. I think the latest thing going around the forums is, and it was pretty much when I first started, I was reading the forums, the No Land Beyond was classed as the worst gun in the game. Now it's classed as one of the best. I realise it's got no flinch. The latest patch, I'm not a big fan of the latest patch. I'll never get to the lighthouse of my own merit. But we do like to play trials. But since this patch, I've got to admit, I've played it less and less. I'm a Vooper or a Fusioner, and pretty much redundant in trials now. You can have them in the first round. You die in the first round, and then the opposite team, when we played trials, 95% of the teams are running wormwoods, sidearms. They know you've got no special, and they just rush you. And I know Bungie said they tested the patch religiously, but to tell you a little story, when they launched this patch, I was talking to my son. He's only 9, and he was asking us what they're going to do with the guns, because he just started Destiny a few weeks ago. And I says, I was explaining the patch notes to him, and he turned around and he looked at me, he said, "Well, Dad," he says, "won't everyone just run around spamming sidearms?" And I said, you would think so, Jack. Yeah, you would think so. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, the patch, everyone's running around spamming sidearms. So I know they say they test it a lot, but I sometimes wonder, when a 9-year-old can say that to you and it proves to be right. Every game in trials is nearly sidearms. So I sometimes feel as though Bungie's trying to. Every gun has had its day, hasn't it? I sometimes feel as though Bungie's trying to. Fusions have had the day, snipers have had the day, shotguns have had the day. It's sidearms' turn. I don't like being pushed into using a certain type of gun. I'm not really a sidearm guy, so I've just backed off from trials a bit. Played it once this weekend, a few games, and that's it. Didn't really play it much last weekend, which is a bit sad because my friends are the same. And they're not all fusioners. Some of the shotguns, some of the snipers, but it's this special ammo economy where you hold on to the sidearm. And I know they're talking about changing it so that you just launch in with 18 or 20 in the clip, but that won't actually affect trials, I think, because that's enough for one kill. And if 3 people rush you with 18 in the clip each, it's not going to change much things.
Well, one of the things that I think drives some of the division in the community is, obviously what we're discussing is all of the nerfs and adjustments made for the sake of PvP that affect PvE. And one of the things that I liked about Destiny was that their position at the time is what you do in PvE will be reflected in PvP. And vice versa. And we've obviously seen that, and if you're familiar with the Taken King and the raid, you know that you need a sniper rifle and you can't really move around, and so you need all of the ammo that you have. Now I think snipers, when you spawn in, you get 5 bullets, where I used to get 26. So it's significantly changed in the ammo capacity for PvE. And a lot of people have been calling for the separation of the two. What are you guys' feelings on the likelihood that they will actually separate that out now?
I don't know whether they'll separate it, and obviously, I'm not a programmer, I don't know the logistics, but I'm a firm believer and it should be separated. I think, a prime example is the truth. Wow, one in the clip is unbelievable. I'm not even aware of any forum posts where people are asking for the truth to be nerfed. They've obviously looked at their data and decided it needed nerfing. But yeah, if possible, I would definitely separate them. But as I say, I'm not a programmer, so I don't know the logistics of that or the time or money it takes to do that.
It's funny you bring up the truth, because I was looking through some old posts I had made yesterday, and I saw a comment I made complaining that what was the point of having 3 in the tube on my truth rocket, since I could only carry 2 rockets in it now. So, and they further exacerbated that. So yeah, that was very, very interesting decision they did there, which again, it doesn't really make any sense. I mean, because they said truth was a guaranteed kill. I don't think so. I don't think I die to a truth rocket every time heavy ammo spawns in Crucible for the other team. So I'm not sure what they were doing there. Paul, I'll ask you this. To Destiny and the unique gameplay they created, do you feel that there should be unbalance, and that it's okay for Destiny PvP to not be a perfect balance, for there to be that rock, paper, scissors kind of balance? One class can have stronger melee, another stronger grenades, another better movement or crowd control, rather than that 1-1 that it seems like they've been trying to chase that can't really happen?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I get what they're going for, but I think they kind of just have to embrace what Destiny is, with the difference between the classes and the weapons and how it's... I mean, frankly, it is always going to be somewhat unbalanced, which has been why balancing has been, so dang hard for it. And I don't know, a long time ago, I was like, okay, build this huge wall between PvP and PvE, like an enormous wall to the point where, like, just have like a generic version of like pulse rifles or snipers or something. Like I was essentially trying to tell them to like make it like Halo PvP, like super normalized in the Crucible, and then everything would be just the same in PvE. And since then, I've realized that that is probably unrealistic, but also not really kind of in keeping with how Destiny is. I do think too many of the changes bleed over into PvE, like the ammo stuff and, the nerfs of certain things. And I do think more kind of mini walls should be built in that regard. Like, okay, the ammo change doesn't apply to PvE, but it's necessary in PvP. But I do think PvP kind of has to embrace its innate unbalancedness, if that's a word, because that's just kind of how Destiny is always going to be. And I think enough people still like it where that's been fine. And I think Destiny PvP could have been a huge failure, but it hasn't been. So I think they are doing a lot of things right, but they're always going to be chasing, kind of perfect balance, and I don't think it's ever going to be that shooter.
So I want to ask, and I'm going to start with you, RedWingGirl, and I want to get this, get everyone's take on this. In the 2.5 years we've played Destiny, what has been the weapon that has just changed the game for you? When you got that gun, everything just clicked, felt right, and it was, the choirs of angels singing from on high. What weapon has been the weapon that has meant the most to you, RedWingGirl?
That's a tough one because each primary, secondary, and heavy has that function. For me, I guess it's probably the swords, but if I was to go back from the very beginning, I would have to say the Vex. The Vex is the most unusual and the coolest gun to get, and I remember when I got it, and it was obviously, through the raid. That's when exotics primarily drop through the raids, and that was probably my best memory of it.
What about you, Paul?
I'm probably gonna say the Meta. I don't know. There's something kind of indescribable about the Meta. Like, it just feels better than almost any other game, like any other gun I've ever used in any other game. And I don't have some like crazy story about how I got it or whatever. Like, I honestly don't remember how I got my first Meta. It's probably just Xur or something. But just how that gun feels and how it performs, just is kind of what Destiny's all about. Like, it's that. The look, the sound, the connection you make when you're, headshotting, like, it's just kind of perfect. And so it's been nerfed and unnerfed and whatever, and like whether it's in the meta or out of the meta, I'm still using it because I just like it that much.
What about you, Stealth Man?
There's probably not a single gun for me. More, like a class of guns, fusions. I didn't use fusions for a long time. I tried them. I think Paul said earlier on he tried them. I tried them for a couple of weeks, probably, over a year ago. Couldn't get this timing right. People were shooting me. I was trying to charge it. And I'm not one of these people that run around spamming the button all the time. But then, a couple of months later, I tried them again and it just clicked. The gun, probably, as I mentioned earlier on, I enjoyed obtaining the most, although it was very frustrating at the time, was the Black Spindle. But we spent a couple of weeks on it, and that's the one I probably enjoyed obtaining the most.
I love hearing these responses, and it's something about Destiny that sets it apart from other games, and something that we've discussed a lot recently, recent episodes, is that the weapons in Destiny, they're not like typical MMO weapons. So you play a World of Warcraft. Those weapons, again, are stat sticks. They're visual, but they're just stats. Destiny, the weapons are extensions of our in-game characters. We're looking down the sights, which just the sights themselves can make or break a gun for a lot of people. We're pulling the trigger. There's weight. There's recoil. There's that feel. Paul, you're talking about the meta and how it feels better than any gun in any other game you've played. And I think when Bungie created this game, they had this idea that, okay, players will use their guns through the Dark Below, we'll give them new guns, then we'll give them new guns in House of Wolves. And what they didn't realize was exactly what they were creating and how much players would get attached to a particular weapon, something that just, as you said, Stealth Man, it just clicked and it just felt right. And I think that was a real game changer, and why so many people are still pissed that there's year one weapons that haven't come back, and so many people left the game with the Taken King when those weapons went away. And so, with that being said, looking at Destiny 2, should Bungie kind of rethink the whole approach to weapons? You know, should Destiny 2 be that endless grind to find, you know, a hung jury, which is a new skin of Nady Salvation State, and then now we've got the Future War Cult, which is a new skin of hung jury, you know, but they're the same stats, you know, different sites, but just basically a different skin. But then you're again trying to grind and grind and grind to get the roll of the gun you just had, that even when you get it, it might not have that feel. You know, that Suros that you're using now might not have that feel of that Amalon you had before. So should Bungie maybe rethink the whole approach to grinding for weapons, and instead of constantly searching and praying for that new roll of what we left behind, should they maybe look at a system where we're grinding to maybe improve, customize, and personalize the weapons that we already have and love? You know, you can keep the grind in the game, but respect the fact that, you know, they've created something with these weapons that players just fall in love with, and when they have it, they just want to hold on to that, and that's their identity within the game.
Well, I think then you're really talking about what people don't like, right? That's why they got rid of the weapon re-rolling program, is because people were just pursuing the god rolls and then going into the Crucible, and then that was the complaint, that everybody was facing a Matador with shop package and everything else, and so I think it annoyed everybody. I'm almost wondering if, and a lot of people have been talking about this, is if Bungie is going to abandon those types of weapon perks altogether and move us towards a vanilla type weapon class or different classes. And I'm wondering if that's a way that they're going to try to you know, just kind of eliminate some of these balancing issues that they're having now.
Yeah, for me personally, I mean, I think Bungie maybe wasn't expecting to do this, but I mean, essentially the guns of Destiny are the characters of Destiny, as weird as that sounds. Like, and again, yeah, I think this is why so many people are kind of upset about why stuff isn't carrying over, because frankly, for most people, like, who your character is, like your warlock or whatever, and how they look means almost nothing, and you are much more attached to your individual weapons than you are your character because of kind of the storytelling flaws of Destiny. So if there was some way to kind of embrace that more, and less grinding for god rolls and more kind of investing in weapons in some form or another and building them up in some way, or I don't know, something like that, I do think that is kind of a good path forward to take.
And to what you said, RedWingGirl, something that we talked about 2 weeks ago would be to get around that whole god roll issue, is these perks that everyone is looking for on everything, the auto rifles with the double stability, you know, the rangefinder, is to make these perks intrinsic on weapons, and as you said, get creative with the perks that they have going forward. Be it something like the Hereafter with a shot that blinds, you know, the Telesto, have a fusion rifle where the shots spread out and stick. I think that would be a way to define and upgrade. You know, we could have weapons where we could upgrade and change around maybe the elements or the type of damage. But yeah, I think there's workarounds to it, but I think it would be to make the perks that everyone wants intrinsic already and start from there.
Well, too, you know, and in a game such as Halo, you know, you have your basic loadout, but really what you do is you gain XP for, you know, the potential to get bigger loadouts or better loadouts, like in that case, like a vehicle or a rocket launcher or, you know, a sniper or something like that. You know, it might just be that, you know, you might be able to go out and adventure and try to make a weapon, but in PvP or something, for example, you know, you might just have the standard kind of vanilla set weapons, and then there'll be drops, you know, someone will try to get to, instead of getting to the heavy ammo box, you'll be trying to get to the sniper or something, and it'll sort of kind of change the dynamics of how PvP is played together, or how it works against teams trying to pursue those other types of really good weapons. But then in PvE, you'll still be able to do more of the character development, some of the gun making, and going into raids and trying to get some maybe parts or some other kind of really good gun. And we've talked about all kinds of different things that they could do, but I just feel like at this point with all of this recent news, just 2 weeks before that, we just talked about this huge rebalancing of the the meta and sidearms, and and before that, it was just, how do we get past facing all of these nerfs and buffs and changes to our supers and everything else, and I don't know how that's ever going to be resolved if we're constantly just having the same kind of guns with the same god rolls and everything else that they continue to bring out. I just don't know how that's going to change in D2.
What about you, Stealth? What would you like to see as far as how the weapon system progresses as we go to Destiny 2? Are you happy with the current system of upgrading, or would you like to see more of be able to progress weapons as we go?
Yeah, I think I'd probably prefer to be able to progress them. I think Destiny's changed a lot in the last few months, should I say, in regards, you can all remember being stuck on, you guys probably remember being stuck on level 36, etc., etc. I think I was stuck on level 319 for months waiting for that elusive ghost. And obviously, they changed the whole weapon and armor so that, it drops. You don't have to do the raid. You didn't have to do the latest raid. There's no end game in Destiny anymore, is there? So you can get the weapons without actually doing these. I know you can't get the raid weapons, but in my eyes, they drop too easy. That going back to this Black Spindle quest again. Having exotic quest lines within the game is great for a weapon. I think it's great. I much prefer to go on an exotic quest line than to do a random nightfall and have a slim chance of dropping an icebreaker, or you do Iron Banner and you come at the bottom of the pack and you drop the best gun. So I kind of think maybe he's not re-rolling, but like RedWingGirl said, maybe he's getting a crate within a raid or something that you can add parts to your gun. If you're at the bottom of the pack in Crucible and you get the best gun, yeah, you could be number one and not get a gun. So yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult. Yeah.
So has Destiny become too easy then to level and gear up? Destiny 2, should we go back? Have we maybe gone a little too far with removing the grind? I know in vanilla Destiny we were spending hours going around collecting the resource materials. We had the 8 million different currencies we went through, the guns that had 5 billion nodes on a perk tree to unlock. But have we gone a little too far the other direction for you then? Does it need to be kind of brought back and put a little more of that have to work to get these things?
Well, for me personally, yes, but obviously it's only my opinion. I'd prefer to do a quest line knowing that I was going to get a reward at the end of it than just random nightfall and, this week I didn't get the icebreaker, next week I might get it, where it's just RNG. I much prefer going into the quests. I prefer end game content, so although on my own merit I won't get to the lighthouse. A friend of a friend actually helped me get there, but not me playing. On my own merit I won't get to the lighthouse. I'm okay with that. I can do a raid, and I know that there's a lot of single players, the struggle with LFG, but I would prefer to do a raid and get a specific item than just random. So like, when it was 385 light and they did the update at 400, I don't personally think it's good that within 3 or 4 days I was 400 light, because I'm already starting to think, well, what do I do? You know, I'm 400 light. What's next? I'd prefer. I don't know whether grind's the word, but I'd prefer to be able to do end content, whereas I can go downstairs now and I can play Control at 395 light. I'm 400 as it is, but I could play at 395 light for half an hour and be 400 light, and I could just run around the map not shooting anyone. And I don't quite get that direction. I know that not everyone can get top in Control, or not everyone can get top in, but you know, you've just got to practice, haven't you? I'm okay with not getting the rewards from the lighthouse. I'm not okay with the current sidearm because I think it's unfair, but I'm okay with not being able to get the rewards. I'm not going to cry about it on the forums. I'll just practice each week and try and get better.
Well, I think that it probably wouldn't be an argument for what happens now that I'm 400 that I got there so quickly. If there was some additional content that you could play that would be meaningful for the reason why you're at 400, right? I mean, if they had the Forge, for example, have, you know, harder waves that, you know, you could, you know, kind of like firefight in Halo, you know, if it just got faster and harder and it was more intense, and then it would be meaningful. It wouldn't be end game content per se like a raid, but it would be something that you could be, as a single player, join into a matchmaking scenario, or go to an area where there would be other guardians there that you could participate with that could take on like a huge patrol war zone or something. You know, it's just that there hasn't been like a lot of those kinds of game types that provide the PvE gamer with something else to do other than just to do the raid 3 times a week on their 3 different tunes, and then that's it. You know, you walk away. There really isn't anything else. I mean, you can do strikes, but, you know, as we know, the strikes are sort of repetitive, and they don't rotate quite often, and that's one of my concerns about D2 is that, you know, it's probably going to be a little bit like it was in the first year, where there's only going to be a couple strikes, and we're going to have to wait for them to bring more strikes to the balance. If they even do that, you know, maybe they're not even going to do strikes anymore. Like, you know, we just don't even know what the new content is going to entail, and over the next few streams, hopefully they'll give us a little bit better of an idea of what they're going to be bringing, although I don't think they're going to disclose a lot because they historically never really do. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see what we will be able to do. But I think the most important thing is, and I think that we learned that on the Activision call, is that they are going to be bringing a lot more content in D2. So it may not be that you'll get to the highest level by just doing the raids. Maybe there'll be so much other content that you can do to get there that it'll be a little bit more balanced.
No, I actually 100% agree with what you're saying there. I guess my take on it is just what you've said. If there was just content in the game, you know, when you get to a high light level, that would be classed as hard. So, you know, you can do the nightfall, but it takes you 20 minutes. It's not hard, is it? There's no strikes that are hard. The raids is probably the hardest, but you've got to invest some time and you've got to get 5 other people. So if there was something in the game that you hit 390, 400 light that was a challenge, and, you know, you're not guaranteed every week to do it first try, I would like that.
So something that you have written about, Paul, is that you think they need to also change up for Destiny 2 how they handle engrams, things of that nature. Just your thoughts on that, and also, do you prefer quest to 3 of coins or engrams to obtain exotics?
I don't like engrams. I don't really see the point of them. The best change, one of the best minor changes Destiny's ever made is when they just started making green items drop into just materials. I don't like having to load up and quit an activity because my engram inventory is full and I don't know what any of them are, so I don't want to disassemble them. And I think the whole system is too convoluted, and like the odd chance of getting an exotic from a legendary engram or whatever is not really worth it to me. I would just rather know what the items are when I get them, like when you get, you know, strike specific drops or raid specific drops where it just shows up as the item automatically. I don't really get why that can't kind of happen with everything. Generally, Three of Coins is... I've always had kind of mixed feelings about that. I do think it was kind of necessary when they implemented it, but it did make exotics feel a little less special. Like, I get that they probably can't do an exotic quest for every exotic. I just don't think they'd have it in them. With that said, like, Three of Coins is always felt kind of a little off to me, in terms of, like, you know, the cooldowns and stacking and like all these different technicalities with it, and like certain bosses it doesn't work on, and like that still hasn't been fixed as far as I know. Like, I think there are tweaks to that system that could be made where I'd probably rather just get rid of Three of Coins and just have a rule that, like, at the end of every boss you have a chance that boss drops an exotic, or at the end of a strike you have a chance to get an exotic. I think that might be easier than having this kind of, it's just another form of currency. Like, you spend strange coins to get it, and you use the 3 coins, and like it's just more crap in your inventory. And I think just Destiny 2 in general could do with a lot of streamlining in those areas.
Wasn't that kind of how, if I remember correctly, the old famous 2013 Behind Closed Doors demo, where they went in and they fought the Archon priest type character inside the Cosmodrome, and it popped out the engrams that immediately decrypted to, I believe, like a Thunderlord on the spot?
Did that happen? Was that one of the early tests? I must have missed that.
Yeah, I believe it's the 2013 Behind Closed Doors E3 demo, and they start out and they're outside the Cosmodrome, and they're saying this is old Russia, and then the famous pan to the area out beyond where we can't go, and they say that out there is older Russia, and they talk about it's all playable terrain, and they hope to send us there one day. And then they go into the wall, they go to the area there where the Archon priest pops out of the wall, they fight him, and he spits out a bunch of engrams, and one immediately decrypts on the spot to, I believe, I'm pretty sure it was a Thunderlord, and they show the old original upgraded tree and stuff.
I feel like I did see that a long time ago, but it must have slipped my mind. I mean, for a while, like, bosses didn't spit out engrams at all. Like, they changed that fairly recently for like strike bosses or whatever, which I thought was really cool, because it's really cool to see kind of engrams spilling out of a boss, and like if your 3 coins pops an exotic, that's cool. I don't see the need for 3 coins, I guess, at all. Like, if you know, I have 200 3 coins, do I really have to just keep popping them for every boss? I don't know. It just seems better to do it kind of with a more natural, simplified looting system, in my opinion.
Well, one of the coolest things that Bungie quickly patched was the loot cave, and that, to me, I know it was sort of a mundane thing where you could just sit there with loot caves and just kill things over and over and over and just watch all the engrams dropped, but that was sort of something that I think was kind of fun, and I hope that and they probably won't because they patched it for a reason, but I hope that they sort of have an area where those things might flare up, where you'll have an opportunity to go in and sort of, you know, have like these little mini raids of all these hordes of enemies come out, and watch sort of engrams or rewards or something drop from that, you know, just as a patrol function.
They do. They do have that a little bit, I guess, when like kind of the enemies are moving against each other or whatever. I guess that's not really a rewarding activity per se, because there's no like prize really for partaking in that. But yeah, I do think they could kind of reward more public events and kind of stuff like that, like you're saying. I did like Archon's Forge for that reason, like it, because you play a couple rounds of that and there will be just tons of engrams everywhere, and like it's not, you know, the most efficient thing, and you're not going to get like the coolest drops there, but to me that is kind of a bit like the amplification of what like a loot cave kind of thing would be, where it's an enclosed space, it's a heated firefight, but it's not just like standing still and shooting into a cave, which, although I did enjoy that, I get why that's not the kind of activity they're going for, but I would like more stuff like that in the future.
And I thought the Archon Forge was really a good progression of along those lines. You know, we had the Prison of Elders, we had the Court of Oryx, but to me those felt kind of Prison of Elders a little too excluding as a solo player at the time, with requiring the fire team for the higher levels, Court of Oryx just seemed like, again, it was just too hard to get in and ever get there and see people there. So, but with the Archon Forge, it was something that, we'd go in and RedWingGirl and I would just spend hours in there just running that content. And again, it dropped those words, and it did. I never really equated it to the loot cave, but it did kind of have that loot cave feel to it. And going to what you were saying, RedWingGirl, one of the events and the enemies moving against each other, as you said, Paul, the one on the Dreadnought, where all those enemies just sit there and spawn out of that little cave within the Dreadnought, and everyone goes over and unleashes their supers, and there's 8 billion orbs on the ground, and there's bricks of ammo everywhere. It would be cool if there was something that would pop up that was more like you were saying, RedWingGirl, where a mini loot fest where you could go and you have this opportunity to go and just unload all hell on the enemy and have it be rewarding, like that loot cave back in the day.
Well, I mean, if you look at some of the harder things, the Nightfall, for example, I mean, what really is frustrating with the Nightfall, which lost some of its appeal, was the reward that you would get after a Nightfall, which was the blue flames, right? Every week, everyone would try to run the Nightfall so that you could run around the tower with the blue flames. But the rewards were meaningful. You got an exotic, and that was when exotics were sort of rare, or you got some really good legendary weapon or something. Now you get, like an SRL horn, or what I usually get is like 12 3 coins or something like that. It's rare. We went through a time where you only got ghosts, but they're not even at the highest level. They're lower than the level that you normally are now. I kind of hope that they take the hardest levels of the game, which I hope that they continue doing the Nightfall, because I've always enjoyed those ever since Lasso and Halo. And I hope that they have some sort of cool reward that is something that you can carry, whether it's sort of an armor piece or, if it can't be the blue flames, maybe something else that just sort of shows everyone, your friends and people at the tower, if there's going to be another tower, that, you've accomplished the Nightfall, and that they have a meaningful reward, like maybe a really rare weapon or something.
So, going to Destiny 2 and what the game will be.
Did that fall flat? The blue flames fall flat? No one likes that anymore?
Oh, no, sorry. I definitely agree with that. I don't know why they ever removed the blue flames, to be honest. Like, that made no sense to me. I get why they kind of removed maybe the bonus for it. Even that could have stayed. I don't know. But, yeah, that made no sense to me. And I think they've been kind of mismanaging the Nightfall from the beginning. Wait, did they ever add matchmaking for the Nightfall? Sorry if that was in a more recent update.
Nope. It's still, you go in by yourself if you're by yourself.
Yeah, okay, that's not, I mean, I think you should have the option to solo in the Nightfall, but like the fact that they couldn't even add matchmaking to the Nightfall, like, oh, that always drove me nuts, because it's not a raid, it's not complicated, everybody knows how to run strikes. Like, if I'm on LFG for the Nightfall, everyone knows what they're doing, we don't even have to talk on mics. I don't know, sorry, I have feelings about the Nightfall, but...
particularly when they removed the return to orbit function, which a lot of people said that was the reason they couldn't do matchmaking originally. Now that's gone and they still don't have it.
Yeah, it does not exactly make me optimistic about adding tons more matchmaking in Destiny 2, but we'll see.
Well, I always thought that the reason why they removed the blue flames was because that's a 343 thing, that's a Halo thing, and they probably were told that they couldn't use it. I don't know if it's true or not, but I would assume that was
that would be
more for Halo.
Such a specific thing for them to be like called out on. But I mean,
I know, but why else remove it? Why else?
No, I don't know. Maybe you're right. That would be really weird.
I know with the Nightfall, up until the Taken King released, I soloed it every week on 3 characters, and I've never soloed it since. And it's very rare that I run it on more than 1 character in a week, and a lot of weeks I don't run it at all. So, it completely destroyed that aspect of the game for me. So,
well, they should have matchmaking for that. You're at least optional. That's why I keep going back to the whole point of optional matchmaking, especially for Nightfalls.
Yeah, I mean, that never makes sense to me, why at least it can't be an option. Like, I get if people will still want to solo it, but Nightfall's the most basic of basic things that needs matchmaking, and I don't get it.
What about you, Stealth? Do you run the Nightfall still every week on all your characters, or no?
No. I used to run it quite often. Don't run it very often now. Ran it since the update, not on every character, just randomly really. Dropped the icebreaker, as I was on about earlier on, it's random. And once I dropped the icebreaker, I ran it. I think I've run it once this week, twice last week, just trying to get friends the icebreaker. It's almost like we feel we've got to run it to get them the icebreaker, rather than doing a quest or something for the icebreaker. So I guess Bungie do it that way, so that it's random and people will continue to do the Nightfall, I don't know. But that is the only reason we're running the Nightfall, really, just for the icebreaker for someone.
I will say this about the Nightfall. One thing we did run it, yeah, there was the icebreaker, but the Zavala gear sets that were tied to the Nightfall, I thought that was something that was actually a positive thing they did with regards to it, and I would like to see more of that going forward if they even have Nightfalls in Destiny 2, where it has its own unique gear or weapon rewards. I thought that was a good addition.
Yeah, that's true. So has everyone, besides Paul, who's not currently playing Destiny too much these days, played Iron Banner, and have you gotten your characters all to level 5?
No. I play Iron Banner quite a lot. I like Iron Banner, but I just can't get away with Supremacy.
I love Supremacy. That's my favorite game mode. That one and Rift. I really like the objective games. You know, I like Control, and I do like Clash, but I really like Supremacy. It's been interesting with the sidearms this time.
Have you played much of Supremacy since it's been out, Paul?
Only a little, not too much, but I did like what I played of it for the most part. I also like kind of objective-based games, and I don't know. I think they work better in Destiny than they do a lot of other games because of all the different kind of abilities that play into it, rather than just kind of normal deathmatch kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was surprised at how much I enjoyed Rift, and it's my favorite game mode when we play it. Love when it's, and I know it's a very Fireteam dependent game mode, but when you have a full team and you communicate, it's really the most fun PvP content in the game, I think.
I think that's the key, isn't it, with Rift? If you've got a full fire team, it is probably one of the best game modes, like Control, within Destiny. Because Rift is very much dependent on communication. I know that I've played Rift a lot of solo, and you grab the spark and you're looking around for your teammates, trying to run ahead of you, and everyone's just running around shooting each other, and yeah, it's difficult when you're a solo player with Rift, or if there's only one or two.
So going to the solo play, the Fireteam play, something else about Destiny 1 is, did they make the most of the open world experience with Destiny 1? They created this game where we go to these planets and we can go to zones where there's whatever, 9, 12, however many it is, other Guardians that are there patrolling with us, but we can't really speak to them. We can wave. We had the House of Wolves event with the roaming wolf patrols, and we kill them, and then everyone has to search for the chest. But there's no real way to communicate to anyone where that chest is when you find it, so people would, dance or wave or whatever they would do to try to signal to players, which, did Destiny 1 need to be that open world to begin with, because outside of the public events, what real interaction did we have? So was it the best use of resources? But going to Destiny 2, what do they do to kind of make these worlds more interactive, to make things less Fireteam dependent? Do you have a Crucible where it's more of a opt-out chat instead of opt-in? Because again, it's this open world where we're all there, but it's silent to such a huge degree. And I don't know where the middle ground is there, but what do you think they could do in Destiny 2 to make this more of a social experience in game?
I'll start, I guess. To me, the problem with Destiny feeling kind of like silent and dead a lot of the time when you're in these zones or whatever is not really based on a lack of proximity chat. Like, I personally wouldn't really like kind of proximity chat or open chat in the different modes, just because I think that would kind of be immersion breaking. Because, like, yeah, you can make new friends and you can tell people what's going on over there, but I think that would kind of, for me at least, kind of shatter the illusion of the world to some extent, to just always have strangers be talking about, you know, whatever random stuff, or the dude who's blaring music, or like, I don't know. And like, I get it could work as opt-in, opt-out, but for me, kind of the reason everything is so dead is because the only thing out in these worlds are just enemies and things to kill, and like, that's it. There's nothing else. And like going wrapping around to Zelda again, or even most open world games, I mean, there are areas where it's like, it's not like a social necessarily with other players area, but that could be the case, but like, you know, a village or a town or like an NPC out in the wild doing something, and you can talk to them or have a conversation or like go on a mission with them. The Destiny 1 just has nothing. It's all just enemies, and there are activities, there's patrol activities and, you know, events that spawn and this and that, but it doesn't make the world feel alive in the right way. Like, there's stuff happening, but the world doesn't feel alive, if that makes sense. And I think kind of integrating more, at least for me, friendly NPCs and more story kind of content into the worlds themselves, rather than having that only be dedicated in like the tower or the reef or whatever, that would be a good start. And I've heard some rumblings about D2 stuff that it might actually be doing that, and like something along those lines. So that's encouraging to me.
Yeah, I think, again, I'm not exactly sure how they could implement it, but I think, you know, we talked about LFG earlier on. Maybe, you know, if Destiny 2's got open parts on patrol, they could have maybe, you know, at the start of each patrol, they could have maybe zones that, you know, you could possibly stand on or something if you wanted, you know, to join someone in chat or whatever, you know, and these zones light up. So, you know, you go into patrol and you can see 2 or 3 people stood in a zone. I don't know, but I know I've talked about on party chat with my friends before about how they would do that on patrol. I'm sure there's ways and means they could do it, and it's sort of bringing LFG into the game rather than people having to post.
I guess I never really thought about NPCs in the world. I mean, I guess I sort of did, but not really to the extent of what you're talking about, Paul, and you're absolutely right. It is sort of a dead world. And, you know, when you do go into open worlds, you know, there's just things that you can do, like what you said in Villages. I'm currently playing right now 7 Days to Die, you know, and you have to sort of venture out and sort of go in and find things so that you can get materials and make buildings and, you know, whatever you need to do. But there's a purpose of going out and going into certain areas and discovering what those areas are. And you're right, if they had some area where, you know, you could do some material gathering, or you could, you know, talk or or participate in a strike with an NPC or something like that, it would definitely add a lot to what is lacking. That's pretty interesting, and that's really that's a positive thing to hear, that they may be considering something like that.
It's always bothered me that you can never just like go on a mission with Cade or like Zavala or something like that. Like, it's such a basic concept, and you do that in so many other games. Like, but I guess Destiny just wants to be so Fireteam dependent that they're not putting kind of any resources into like NPC, you know, friendly NPC AI combat or anything, which maybe it's not necessary, but I do think it would be cool.
Yeah, it's very cool, and I never thought of it the way you just put it out there about the worlds lacking that. And again, going to World of Warcraft, you're in these zones and and you'll have a Thunder Bluff or an Ogremar for the players that have played that, where you go in and you have all the NPCs, and you have your tower type setting there within the world. So that would be really cool that they are considering doing for Destiny 2. I would be very interested to see how that played out.
So, Paul, I have a question for you. In your experience with some of the games that you've covered, what has been your pros and cons between peer-to-peer and dedicated servers? I know a big complaint with a lot of people on BungieNet is the lack of dedicated servers and the lag that we see in Crucible. How do you think that? Do you think it's possible that Bungie would consider having dedicated servers, or do you just think that it's just too common and modern now with peer-to-peer?
I think the right call is obviously to have dedicated servers. Whether Bungie is going to actually do that because of given how common peer-to-peer is, I would doubt it. I would guess that that's probably kind of low on their priority list. That said, I mean, some of the lag issues and some of the periods of the Crucible have been kind of so bad that you would hope they were maybe at least considering that, but I don't know. I'm probably not going to hold my breath to have them actually do that.
Have you played since they sort of downgraded the skill-based matchmaking and put in more of the connection-based matchmaking? Have you played that and noticed the difference between the two, or not?
I have played since then, but I probably don't play enough to really notice kind of a huge difference. Like, I'd probably have to playing like multiple games in a row to really get it. I don't think I have enough data to say kind of definitively whether it's gotten better or worse, unfortunately.
I thought it had reverted back to skill-based.
No, I think it's still connection-based matchmaking dominant.
I know when I play on my son's account, I must play much better than because his KD is much lower, and I just seem to play much better than.
Well, I don't know about the experience you've had, Stealthman, but when we've been playing in this Iron Banner, the games have been so lopsided. It's been pretty unbelievable, like blowouts that I've never seen. It's just you're either getting crushed or you're crushing anyone. There's not really any close matches to be had. There's nothing that's going down to the wire. I mean, we were had a couple of games where we mercied teams, and that doesn't happen in Iron Banner. So to me, it's been a very noticeable difference in the quality of the gameplay since they've done the switch. But that's just been my experience.
Have you noticed that the connections have been better or not? Because I haven't really noticed any better connections. I still see one or two people per match with red bars teleporting. You know, you kind of put your damage down on them.
No, and that was the argument that a lot of us made before, when players were putting up hundreds and hundreds of remove SBMM posts, is that it wasn't going to clear up the connection issues because there's so many factors going into how we match. It's not just connection and skill. I mean, you're looking at the players that are playing, how many players are in a match currently that their match is ending at the same time your match is ending, and you have that window where you can match up with X criteria. I don't think players consider that. And also then you put in fire teams, and fire teams just throw everything out the window because there's players that play with friends in other countries, other sides of the world. And so all that introduced into the mix, how are you going to balance connections and ping and latency on top of all that? And it was just a pipe dream to think that removing the skill-based and going to connection-based was going to fix anything. Because again, there's just so many working parts. And yeah, it hasn't. If anything, for me, it's been more red bars since they've made this switch that we've seen.
Well, one of the things that I think that skill-based matchmaking is good for, obviously, is so that people don't get mercied quite often, or I think it's good that people can compete against each other with relatively similar skills, because I think those are the skills that elevate how much better that you're going to do in a game. But further to that, do you think that in Destiny 2 they will introduce some sort of ranked playlist for some more of the sweaty types that we know in Destiny, as well as perhaps a skill-based matchmaking or something similar in the trials, as opposed to what it is now, where it's basically, you go against people who have the same wins that you do, for example. Do you think it'll be a little bit more smoothed out in how that process works, or do you think that they'll still keep the same sort of rules that they have now and just sort of a general crucible for the rest of us?
That's a difficult one, isn't it? With trials, it's meant to be PvP endgame, isn't it? But we've noticed playing, since Rise of Iron, obviously the player base has dropped a lot, hasn't it, on trials? It's down to 290, 300,000, I think it is now. It is a lot more, for want of a better word, sweaty. Ranked play system. Don't get us wrong, I would prefer to play against people of my skill, average skill, than I would prefer to play, because currently, you start in a game of trials and you use your boons, so you've got to win. You go into your first match, and technically speaking, the world's best team could be starting on the same time as you, and you could play the world's best team, or you could play someone of your. So it's not great the way they've got it now, because you don't know who you're playing. I know that Bungie says it's on a card-based system, so someone who's on 4 wins, you're going to match against someone on 4 wins, but that doesn't make it any easier for someone, because you could be matching against someone on 4 wins on your KD of 1 against someone on a KD of 4. So they're always going to beat you.
Well, one of the things that I was kind of hoping that we would hear in the next, few streams is some sort of changes to Crucible and some kind of changes for trials. And I think a lot of people have been asking for a ranking playlist, and I think that's something that, a lot of other shooter type of games do have ranked playlists, and I think that would kind of separate out some of the cries for nerfs. If you're just playing in a regular game for Crucible to have fun, you're just going to be kind of matched up with people sort of similar to you. And then if you really want to get into those sweaty matches and things like that and test your skill, and if you think you're great, then you kind of go into that sort of in that game mode. And I know Trials is sort of considered a ranked playlist, but I still don't think that what they've done for Trials is sort of fair to the average casual gamer, because they're always running up against the paid Trials carries or those really great players, and I kind of hope that they sort of switch that up a little bit more and apply skill-based matchmaking more to that than, say, a ranked playlist. Maybe offer a ranked Trials playlist or something. I'm not sure, but I would like to see them expand on Crucible a little bit more. But with that, with the idea of the pool being so small, and that's part of the reason why there's so many red bars, especially in trials, because there's such a small population playing it, that I guess if they do decide to expand the Crucible playlist, then they run the risk of spreading too thin. But if they concentrated more on some of the game modes like Mayhem or maybe just Supremacy, or kind of highlighted those game modes more, maybe it would ease some of the tension on the people who join those games.
Yeah, I have very few PvP specific opinions, but one thing I can 100% get behind is ranked playlists. I think that pretty much all shooters should have ranked playlists, and I know a lot don't, but I grew up playing Halo 3 with ranked playlists there, and that was a really good component of the game. But you could also just drop into casual matches, and it would be a lot more fun. I do think it would work well in Destiny. I get the thing about the player pool, and I think it is kind of tough to judge kind of PvP and connection stuff now, because I think the pool of players in Destiny has gotten so low now that might be kind of amplifying what issues there are. I think Destiny 2 would be a lot better, but I am fully behind the idea of some sort of ranked playlist, even if it's just for kind of 1 or 2 modes.
And I think that that is something that people don't consider, the difference between vanilla Destiny when it released and the game we have now, is that there's so many more game types that we have that, like you said, RedWingGirl, it is spreading people out over, not just Control and Clash, but now we have Rift and Supremacy. We've got the classic playlist that people are there instead of us all being together, and they're in the classic 3v3, classic 6v6. So that in and of itself has spread out the population as well. I agree there should be a ranked playlist as well for the players that consider themselves the hardcore PvPers. And Trials, if Trials is in Destiny 2, I think that Bungie needs to seriously rethink how it works, whether it be through the matchmaking system, as you said, RedWingGirl, with the skill-based versus their card-based, but also in the effect that game mode has over the rest of the game in general, because you're looking at a game mode that's so specific in the way it's played, with the 3 versus 3, with the elimination style format, where when one team of 3 is running something, you see that you died to it 3 times and suddenly it's OP. And I don't know. I don't know where they can go with it, but I think they would need to really rethink it if it's there. And if it means balancing it as its own little universe versus the rest of the game, so be it. But yeah, I think we've talked about as well, Destiny with the design of the maps and whatnot. And Destiny 2, I'd like to see map design that is more conducive to the game modes that we play. The Rift style games, the Trials maps where it's more even. You don't have, I love Shores of Time, but Shores of Time as a control map is terrible. If you get A, you're done. Blind Watch, everyone knows the pain that caused players in year 1. So hopefully in Destiny 2 there's a little more thought into how maps fit the game modes themselves, a little more symmetry, and maps that highlight our abilities of our characters.
It would also be nice if we were allowed to actually vote on a map.
Yeah, the map voting, I think that if we could vote to disallow one, say we don't like this one and it has a chance to roll to another, I think, but I don't want to see where everyone's voting to pick a map. So I'm not sure if that's which direction are you looking with it on the map voting?
Well, I mean, if I don't want to play Blind Watch, I'm going to vote not to play Blind Watch, but, majority rules. The rest of the team could pick it, but at least it would be an option to pick another map. Yeah.
See, I agree there with being able to vote no on a map and then it rolls to something else. So particularly if you get the same map over and over. But I think if we could actually vote and just pick a map from the start, then we'd see maps that became the meta that everyone was playing every game.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I'd like to see a primary only Crucible playlist introduced. I think a lot of people would play it just primary only. There's no heavy, there's no sidearms. Sidearms. There's no secondaries.
Well, that was a Freudian slip right there.
So we're at the point of the program where I'd like to get everyone's favorite moments playing Destiny, if not the last week or two, but favorite recent moment playing. So start with you, Stealth Man. What's been your favorite moment playing?
Favorite moment's got to be playing with my son. We talked about it earlier on, but when he got the icebreaker a couple of weeks ago, he came bounding down the stairs and he's literally dancing around the lounge. Gloating, we'll call it gloating in front of my face. But yeah, that was probably my favourite moment, seeing his character develop, and he's unlocking certain things, and is this perk good, Dad, and is that perk good, Dad? It's just father-son, isn't it? It's great.
That's awesome. What about you, Paul? What's been your favourite recent moment playing Destiny?
Yeah, it wasn't within the last week, but back when I was still playing a little bit ago, I finally got a Grasp of Malak to drop, which I really, really love. It's really good. And probably one of my favorite all-time that I've gotten so far, so that's been really nice.
That is RedWingGirl's favorite weapon ever, I think, isn't it, RedWingGirl?
Yeah, That was going to be part of my favorite moment. My favorite moment was realizing in Iron Banner that all this time I should have just not given up on my grasp of Malak, and that I actually was able to just kind of go back to my usual play style and just kind of dominate with my grasp. So that was sort of fun. I was kind of glad to get that back. I felt comfortable with it, and I was doing pretty well.
Yeah, and my favorite moment was actually playing Mayhem, which, again, it should just be an all-time game mode. But it's funny, there was all this talk recently, and Josh Hammer came in to discuss it with us on the forums over the talk of possibly nerfing the fusion grenades. And I went into Mayhem and I rolled my Sunsinger, and I was using the solar grenades and was getting lots of complaints because no one could see through my barrage of solar grenades. So I switched to the fusion and was just decimating. I had a game with 19 kills that were all the get off it sticks to the face. So to me, that was just the most fun I've had, and I really hope they don't nerf it, because it's something that makes this game fun, and things that are fun should be fun, and things that are fun should be OP, and it should be in all aspects of the game, and more things should be powerful, and more things should just make you say, oh my god, that's amazing. So that was my favorite moment.
So we probably shouldn't ask him to look at your kills that you got, and because you just justified everybody's reasons for saying that the fusion grenades are OP.
I had to aim those. I don't know what you're talking about. There was no Bugs Bunny knuckleball that was chasing someone around the corner, down the block, and through the back door to stick them.
Yeah, love those Axion bolt grenades. Those things are just ridiculous.
Yeah, no, they are not OP. They are not magically tracking. They're fun. So leave the fun alone and have more fun, because that's the point of the game is to have fun, and to have fun with our friends and with our family. Like you said, Stealth Man, playing with your son. It's a really great game, and hopefully it's a great game that come Destiny 2 gets even better. And, we'll find out. We've got 3 weeks of announcements coming on what we will see to carry us through to Destiny 2. So, maybe Vault of Glass and Crota, who knows? But Bungie, I hope that, there's something in there that, again, you dropped this news on us. I hope there's something to temper it. And, I hope that the time that players have invested in this game over the last 2.5 years, and the players that have really spent a lot of time and built a lot of love for this thing you've created and want to carry it forward because they care so much about this gear and these items that you've given us. I hope there's some sort of compromise going forward and something to take into D2, and it's not just all gone. Stealth Man, thank you for joining us today from the UK. I know it is very late in the evening. I really appreciate you staying up and joining us.
No, thank you very much for the invite. I've enjoyed it. It's fantastic.
Paul, really appreciate you joining us today. I know you're very busy, and it's really great getting to talk to you. Like I said, I know that back in June of 2015 we first spoke, so 2 years later it's nice to finally get on here and be able to talk Destiny with you. It's been really cool.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been a fun conversation and a nice, 2 hours Zelda break. So.
All right, and RedWingGirl, as always, it's wonderful being able to host the podcast with you, and just a great time here with the guests that we're able to bring on and talk to.
Yeah, it was very nice meeting both of you, and I really appreciate all your input. It'd be an interesting response to see how everyone in the community on Bungie.net talks about this one. Hopefully we'll get some good positive feedback for Bungie to reflect on.
And to everyone out there listening on SoundCloud, on iTunes, watching on YouTube, and participating on BNet and the feedback forums and Destiny forums. Really appreciate all of you and look forward to hearing what you have to say on these topics. And if anyone out there wants to be a guest on the Truthcast, just get in touch with RedWingGirl or myself, because we'd love to have you on and hear your thoughts on Destiny. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Almighty
that's a wrap. Thank you, everyone.